So once again we are here, and as you see, we have chosen the caption today, that is, all words she makes the partners of her deeds. And there will be another 8-9 accompanying lines on which we will dwell. But before that, we'll first read the whole passage as usual. All worlds she makes the partners of her deeds, accomplices of her mighty violence. Her daring leaps into the impossible. From every source she has taken her cunning means. She draws from the free love marriage of the plains elements for her creation's tour de force. A wonder waft of knowledge incalculable. A compendium of divine inventions feats. She has combined to make the unreal true, or liberate suppressed reality. In our unhedged Circean wonderland, pell-mell, she shepherds her occult mightinesses. So this is the passage, and first we'll dwell upon these. Then when we finish, I'd also like to share something with you today regarding Savitri, some beautiful words of Amalda, that is Amal Kiran, as you know him. So that is afterwards only. So first let us see what these lines imply. All worlds she makes the partners of her deeds, accomplices of her mighty violence. Her daring leaps into the impossible. So we are still in Book 1, Canto 5, and here what Sri Aurobindo sees, the nature in her creative effort. Last time also we discussed about nature and the role she plays in the evolution of earth, and which she garners from the higher planes of her consciousness. So today we still continue with that. So all words she makes the partners of her deeds. These few lines. Nature in her creative effort draws upon all that she has manifested here in this world, on this earth, out of the being of the Supreme. And she brings in and utilizes all the possibilities, all the potentialities that is available in the various planes of existence, various worlds of existence, as we discussed earlier also. And these she brings in down onto the earth and releases here as a field of action, as her field of action, so that on earth there may be or there can effectively take place the growth and evolution of life. on earth. Otherwise, it would not have been possible to attain with earth's earthly elements alone. That is, whatever is in earth, all those elements, that wouldn't have been possible, or rather we can say sufficient enough to effectuate the evolution, that is the forward march of life on earth. So what we see, that nature, although it may seem to be a mechanical force here acting without certainty, without any show working, but in effect, in actuality, it is she only who draws upon from her higher worlds of consciousness or planes of consciousness all those powers and utilizes here on earth. From every source she has taken her cunning means. She draws from the free love marriage of the planes elements of her creation's tour de force. As we see, there are various planes of existence, but these planes or these worlds are not shut unto themselves. In fact, they are grades of one single existence, and based on its special principle, the nature brings in those higher powers, occult powers, available there, up there, in those planes or worlds of consciousness, and bring in and effectively work out here the process of evolution. And these get interpenetrated, all these planes of consciousness interpenetrate in between themselves. And from all this mixed action of the whole, the creative power fashions her modes and forms, the material for her achievements. She achieves out of all these powers, she brings out from above and arranges accordingly, according to the need. Then what we find, a wonder waft of knowledge incalculable, a compendium of divine inventions feats. She has combined to make the unreal true or liberate suppressed reality. In this material world in which we live is based on inconscience, ignorance, obscurity that we all know, isn't it? But then this is only a cursory look. Initially, we see all these things, that it's a mechanical force, how it can work out properly so that life can improve on earth. These are our perceptions which are totally on the surface. But behind all this, there is something else which she garners, brings out from above, and even what is called the subliminal, as we discussed earlier, the plane of consciousness which is behind the physical. She brings all those powers hidden there and works out here. In her unhedged Circean wonderland, pale-male, she shepherds her occult mightiness. This is just what we discussed. In fact, although the outlook is contrary in appearance, that is, all is mechanical, but there are her subtle extensions, nature's subtle extensions, which go beyond the physical, and she marshals all those powers in her secret domains, which are hidden from our sight normally. That is, all those planes of consciousness she has access to, she brings in and utilizes here. Her mnemonics of the craft of the infinite, jets of the screen's subliminal caprice, tags of grammary of inconscience. In fact, nature has her memory of the infinite. Here it is finite, limited on earth, in the lower triple world of mind, life, and matter. But there, that is the supreme consciousness out of which she is born, she has her memory of the eternity, infinity. So she can, at her summons, bring all these energies, powers, which are occult, and utilizes here, fulfilling its objective. And what is the objective? It is the evolution of earth life, which is not limited only to what we know as mind. Now, man is a mental being, as we can see, but with the potentiality or possibility of going beyond the borders. That is why he has used this word, hedged. What is hedge? It is a barricade. So, man has the possibility of going beyond the mental hedge, beyond the boundary of mind, and bring in all those powers hidden there in different planes of consciousness down here. Usually, nature does it in a slow pace, but if man wishes and collaborate in the precipitation of the process of evolution, then it will be faster and sooner than one imagines. So here we pause today, and as I said in the starting itself, I would like to share something very beautiful regarding Savitri. This is what Amalda K.D. Setna recounts while he gave a talk to the ashram students, which appeared in the issue of Mother India of April 1971. So this is a beautiful one. Lot of us know and also practice a little bit, but without knowing the background of it. That is why I just wanted to share with you all this. I would just read out. It's a little long passage, but still I would share. If you want to have the description of the mother's face, you will find descriptions very accurate and very penetrating when Sri Aurobindo delineates the heroine of his epic, that is, a legend and a symbol. Read what he writes in Savitri about Savitri, and you will have an idea of the mother's bodily presence, the mother's facial expression. Now that I have touched upon Savitri, I might say a few things about it. In fact, I have already said some of them to a friend of mine a week or so back. He was sitting and trying to meditate. I went up to him and put him a silent query as to how he was. He looked up. There was a smile on his lips, but a depression deep as hell in his eyes. And he brought out the great pronouncement, "I'm getting on." Well, it reminded me of an exchange I have sometimes heard in South India. Amalda recollects the morning greeting among some Tamils. There's a lot of compression and intuitive packing in this exchange. One of the parties asks, "How are you?" "I hope," within brackets, laughter. And the reply is, "Somewhat, I'm afraid." Laughter. I thought my friend did seem as if he was in a bit of within double inverted somewhat condition. Laughter. So I asked him, "Why not tell me what exactly is the matter?" He looked up sadly and said, "The trouble is precisely that I do not know what exactly the matter is. All I can say is that several years ago, I was in touch with a certain set of circumstances and personalities, and the result is an undiagnosable damage inside me." Then Amanda answered, "Then perhaps I can help you a little." So I sat down and told him a story of my own. It's connected with an experience which I recounted in my very first talk, my very first abnormal or supernormal experience. This is how he describes now. I somehow got out of my body and began to float in the air above my own form, stretched out in bed below, and moved in the room from wall to wall, bouncing as it were to and fro. Now, this escape got encouraged by a little practice of yoga. After coming here, it became more frequent, and it was very enjoyable indeed while it lasted. I could feel free from all the cares of the world when I was out of the body. But when I went to Bombay and stayed there for several years, it became a little dangerous because the Guru's protection was not immediate. He's referring Sri Aurobindo as Guru. Guru's protection was not immediate. And there I found that I would loiter about in all sorts of unpleasant places. In those subtle worlds, you must understand, there are pretty unpleasant spots. There are extremes. On the one hand, you find beauty surpassing anything that any poet has described. On the other, you find indescribable squalor, filth, wickedness, and all. Wickedness, of course, from our point of view. For the beings there what we call hell is really a heaven of perverse pleasure. And it should be so because there are not evolutionary worlds but typal ones. And God would be indeed unjust if He didn't allow them to get pleasure in whatever way is open to them. In Bombay, exploring these worlds, I fell into a company which seemed terribly hostile. Sri Aurobindo has given a hint in Savitri about such company. Within inverted commas, their very look is a calamity. I believe you all find it. And these creatures, after showering their calamitous looks on me, got behind me, and when it was least expected, I felt a tremendous crash on my back. I felt as if my whole spine had been broken to bits. I didn't know what to do. Naturally, with a shock like that, I woke up, and the subtle body rushed back to the fortress of the physical. But I was sick, and sick in a way that seemed incurable. What could I do? Should I call a doctor? The doctor would come and thump my chest and hear the sounds in my lungs and feel my spine and find it absolutely intact. Then, all of a sudden, I remembered that when you cannot have the privilege of seeing the face of the Mother or Sri Aurobindo, which can make whole every broken spirit, you can turn to the poetry of Sri Aurobindo, the poetry which is called the mantra. The mantra is the highest spiritual poetry, as you know. It is the divine, as it were, expressing himself directly, not through any other medium of consciousness. The divine being getting embodied in words on the very plane of the divine himself. That is the mantra. It is the word from the overmind, the supermind's delegate that has been the governing power of the universe so far. I remembered also that I had asked Sri Aurobindo what plane a certain passage in Savitri, the description of Savitri herself in Canto II of Book 1, had come from. Very grudgingly, he had, that is Sri Aurobindo, admitted it to have come from the overmind, or rather the overmind intuition, as he very cautiously used to level the source of the highest poetry in his own works. The passage begins. This is the passage some of us know and always read when something goes wrong. Near to earth's wideness, intimate with heaven, exalted and swift, her young, large vision spirit, voyaging through worlds of splendor and of calm, overflew the ways of thought to unborn things. This is page 14 of Savitri. It goes on to reach somewhere in its middle what I consider the mantra of mantras. As in a mystic and dynamic dance, a priestess of immaculate ecstasies, inspired and ruled from truth's revealing vault, moves in some prophet cavern of the gods, a heart of silence in the hands of joy, inhabited with rich creative beats, a body like a parable of dawn that seemed a niche for veiled divinity, or golden temple door to things beyond. This is page 15. Onward from glory to glory, the passage moves. I recited the whole of it, and when, on the way to the close, I came to the line, for even her gulfs were secrecies of light. That is on page 16. I suddenly felt cured, made whole. So I said to my friend, if you can read Savitri, all your inner troubles will tend to disappear. But you have to read it aloud to yourself. My friend was surprised. I have read Savitri several times, he said, but I have never thought of reading it loudly. I explained, that is the way to read it because the sound significance is tremendous. It must go into you through your ears. You cannot just read it with your eyes. You have to read in a slow, controlled voice, bringing out the vowel values. I think we have to be very cautious while reading Savitri. So he has just given all the clues here. That's why I just wanted to share it with you. The consonant combinations and the sound of the line as a whole. It is then that the language sweeps beyond thought to stir awake deeper tracks in you. This is what we discussed today also. There are deeper tracks, means behind our physical sheath, there are other planes. In fact, there's a huge ocean which is called the subliminal, and in the subliminal, right from the lower depths of the plane that is called the inconscient, there are so many, right from inconscient through subconscient, then conscient, then your higher mind, after ordinary mind, higher mind, illumined mind, intuitive mind, overmind, where all the gods operate from, and even beyond that, which is the source of all the cosmic powers, that is above Godheads, which is called the supermind. So all these planes, right from the lower ones to the supreme consciousness. So you cannot just read it with your eyes. You have to read in a slow, controlled voice, bringing out the vowel values, the consonant combinations, and the sound of the line as a whole. It is then that the language sweeps beyond the thought to stir awake deeper tracks in you. It is then that the mantra will wing home to you. And I can assure you that if you let it do so, your undiagnosable bad damage will disappear. I do hope it has started disappearing by now with short exercises of mantric incantation. This is what I wanted to share. In fact, there is one more passage I would just like to add. It is again his saying on some other context, but equally useful for us. I read, what Huta told you about reading or reciting Savitri must be a directive from the mother, or something mixed with it from what she may have said within inverted commas, slowly, clearly, precisely, is very fine advice, but it can apply just as well to good prose. We must not forget that Savitri is poetry, generally of five metrical beats. That is, it is by and large iambic pentameter. One must have a sense of this fact and also of the variations played upon this bass. Of course, it goes without saying that one must be familiar with the usual stresses in English words. The voice must not fall into any sing song. English poetry is to be read and not sung. But since it is a metrical in a marked way, some sense of the meter must come through. Then there is the matter of end stopped lines and of enjambment. Enjambment means that the sense of one line runs over into the next. The end pause in enjambed lines is much less than in end stopped lines. But since poetry is cut up into lines, the line ending cannot be quite ignored. A very small pause must be there, even in enjambed lines. This is all I can say at the moment. So you can see how important it is when we read Savitri, how we should be careful enough when to pause at every end of line. There should be a little pause of even if it flows on to the next line, and everything should be distinct and with an aspiration. We should read Savitri always. So what we find here, the hint, even if it is a physical pain in our being, even that can be wiped out. And we have plenty of examples of that. Some of us which have gone through this sort of problems, and I'm sure from now onwards we'll be much more careful and with true aspiration, the right way. We should always read Savitri, preferably in a particular time, and time permitting afterwards, as usual, whenever we get time, doesn't matter, but preferably in a particular time, so that we can invoke the Divine Mother through Savitri itself. So that is what is for today, and I think we can discuss, come across all those things which are very important regarding Savitri, which can take us along. We will be discussing afterwards also. So that's it for today. If you have something, please. Okay.